Welcome to the premiere episode of Help Me Makeover My Marriage. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and in the guest chair today is Michele Brunson. And together, what we want to do is to share our experiences in our marriage to help you make over your marriage. I've been married 4 times, so you can call me a marrying woman, for a total of 30 years. And Michele has been married for 25 years. Her husband died last year, but, we give our condolences to her. And I want to thank her for coming on today to help you to make over your marriage. And the reason that we're helping you to make over your marriage is because a lot of times when things are not going right in our marriage, in our relationships, we always feel that the grass is better on the other side or greener on the other side. So we think, you know what, I'm going to be able to find someone better. But I'll tell you, the grass is never greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. So wherever you put your attention on, wherever you put your focus on, is definitely what's going to grow. So Michele and I want to be able to give you some tips and strategies to help you to make over your marriage. And I remember, and the reason we're doing it that you need to change is because I've always remembered what my pastor said to me years ago, maybe about 20 years ago. Because like me and most of you, we're always blaming our husbands or our partners for whatever is wrong. So my pastor said to me that, you know what, whenever I go to God, I don't say, God, change my wife. I say, God, change me. And I'm in my 4th marriage now, as I said, and I came into this marriage with all kinds of expectations because, of course, I was, in my 40s when I got married again. So I had a lot of stuff that came with me, baggage, expectations, and I brought it all into my marriage. And having the same problems again, because your problems follow you. And then when I decided to change me, and it worked. I mean, this is 20 years after I heard that advice. But a lot of times we have knowledge and we don't actually use it. But my current pastor, Pastor Glover, would say, treat your husband like he's your king and love him the way you want to be loved. So that's what I did. And a remarkable thing happened. I enjoyed serving. I enjoyed treating my husband like a king. And our relationship started to mend because I was no longer pointing fingers. I was no longer, not talking to him because of something he wasn't doing or things like that. So in this episode and subsequent episodes, we're going to give you information on how to change you because it all starts with you. So in this first segment, we're going to do a question and answer. Later segments, we'll have guests come on the show. But today, we are going to start with questions that was sent into us by, our Facebook group. So our first question comes from Debbie in Miami, Florida. Debbie writes, I've been married for 12 years. My husband and I have 2 children, ages 7 and 10. I immersed myself in the role of mother and wife and as a stay-at-home mom while my husband worked full-time and saw his role as the provider. As a full-time mom, I rarely took time for myself and began to resent my husband for not helping with the kids and paying me any attention. Our intimacy suffered and my resentment built up. I even started looking outside the marriage for fulfillment. Her question is, how can I make over my marriage and recapture my intimacy? So, Debbie, I had the same experience with my second husband. And my marriage ended because I built up the resentment. And the resentment was the roles were actually reversed. I was the breadwinner, making most of the money, and he sat around doing nothing because he thought that housework and looking after the kids, we had one, was women's work. And, so I was paying the bills and I was being treated like a second-class citizen. And I built up resentment. That marriage eventually ended. But now I know better. Again, knowledge, when you use it, is power. So now I know that what Debbie should do is actually ask for help. Say to your husband, hey, I know that you work and you're a provider, and we made this contract that I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, but I need a break. I need you to help with around the house. I need you to help with the kids, because being a mom is a full-time job. You don't take a break. He goes to work from 9 to 5 and then he's off. But a mom is a full-time job. And, or maybe, get a babysitter for the kids every 2 weeks or something and have date night so that you guys can be together and recapture intimacy without the kids being around. So my advice to you would be, first of all, ask for what you want. And second of all, make the time to do your part. If you have the intention that you are going to love your husband and you're going to appreciate him for being the breadwinner, because that's what he is, and you show him appreciation, he will show you back love. So that's my advice on that. Michele,
Yes.
what would you say to Debbie from your experience? And Michele is actually an intercessor. So maybe you can bring in a biblical touch or something from the Bible or the scripture that you can help Debbie with this situation.
Okay. So first of all, Myrna, I want to thank you for having me. And
You're welcome.
my advice to Debbie would be pray for your husband first, because some women don't start there. Pray for your husband, because God is his creator and he will change any situation concerning your husband. And if your husband is providing for the family, no husband wants to come home after fighting all day and have to fight with his wife.
Right.
So the first thing that she needs to do is have peace
Right.
in her home.
Right.
So if he's providing, and it's for a season, because you're, like you say, y'all in this contract together and you chose to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And I would just say have a strategy, first of all, because some women don't know to have a strategy. Mm-hmm. Monday you might do one thing, Tuesday. Don't try to consume all of that into one day, because you get burnt out and you feel misvalued. In a marriage, you should first have communication,
Right.
trust, and you should value one another. Now, if you value him as your king, as you said, because you pretty much said all the right answers. Once you start with valuing your husband and appreciating him for who he is the bread, he's going out there making it happen, and providing, then you should make him feel comfortable in his own home, first of all, because we create the atmosphere.
Right.
So like I said, after fighting all day out there at work, he comes home, he wants to take off his armor, and he have to fight with you.
Right.
Then it's not fair to him. But I would advise Debbie to first pray for her husband to change his situation and have a strategy. Because I reflect to the Proverbs 31 woman. She did everything. She was a businesswoman. She knew who she was. She was a businesswoman first. She was a very productive woman, meaning she sold her own clothes. She, went out, bought property. She was into real estate. And she took care of the kids. She took care of the family.
Right.
But she also took care of herself.
Right.
And that's what we fail to do sometimes as women.
Yes, self-care is big.
Self-care is very important.
And that's actually what she's lacking, because she's so consumed with looking after the kids, she's not doing self-care.
Right.
And self-care also leads to intimacy, because if you're going to look good, you're going to feel good, your husband is going to feel that energy, Um, so yeah, what advice do you give her for reestablishing intimacy? Right.
Okay. First, love yourself.
Right.
Love God, so that you can love others. That's one of the first commandments, that we love others. But take time for herself. Like I said, when she said she have to do all the chores.
Yeah.
There has
Look
to
after
be
the kids.
yeah.
Right.
There has to be some time where maybe like she can step out the house to go grocery shopping.
Right.
You know, and he can take after the kids.
Right. Right.
And have some time for her.
For herself.
We call it me time, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Even going to the gym. I was listening to the radio the other day, and you know, the guy was talking about someone wrote a book about the 5 things that you can do to have quality time and self-love. And they were talking about the 3-3 rule, I think it was. So you should have 3 hours of personal time for yourself, because that's all important.
Yeah.
Because again, if you don't have that personal time for yourself, you are not going to be able to be any good to your husband.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because you're going to be feeling stressed, you're going to feel overwhelmed. So somebody wrote a book, you should have 3 hours. And he was complaining that the 3 hours shouldn't come out of his gym time.
Okay, exactly.
But gym time is actually personal time.
It's personal time.
You know, but he thinks that it's something that you need to do, and it shouldn't come out of his 3 hours, because I think they have like 4 kids at the house, and you know, they're young kids, so it's a lot of time on there. But yeah, so whether it's personal time, whether it's, you know, going to the gym, whether it's going for a walk in the park.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
but you need personal time.
Personal time.
And I agree with date night.
Yeah,
You know,
date
let someone
night.
watch the kids and schedule it. You know, I've always scheduled, like you talk about scheduling, I've always scheduled personal time with my husband.
Okay.
Even when we go on vacations, one time I take the kids and one time we go alone. And women do not understand that they need personal time alone with their spouse,
Yeah, Myrna,
without the kids.
Right. What I would do, I would get up before everybody else in the house got up, 5 a.m., prayer.
Right.
Because that really captures your whole day once you pray. So, and set the environment. And a lot of times when you get up 5 a.m., if you stay up, you can, if it's clothes you need to wash, if it's, because
So that's still working.
That's still working. So she just don't want to work. Okay. So if it's,
Yeah, if you're going to talk about getting up at 5 a.m., yeah, she can meditate.
yeah, she can groom herself.
She can meditate,
That's
right,
time when
and
she can
find
groom
that
herself.
peace.
Yeah,
Right,
find that inner
yeah.
peace.
Drink a cup of coffee,
Yeah, have coffee
before you started
That's me
doing
time.
anything.
That's me time.
Right, it's just
Right.
me time. That's true. And a lot of women take it at the end of the night when the kids are in bed.
Right.
Right? So, which is why they have that
They're
8 o'clock
exhausted.
bedtime or 7 o'clock bedtime. And that's just so that you can have your personal space.
Right.
You know, in my personal life right now, I work, you know, I'm gifted or blessed to be able to work from home. So I take personal time in the morning. I go walk in the park. I listen to inspirational, whether it's a podcast or whether it's a message or whether it's a book. But I inspire myself that way in the morning in my walk. And then at night at 7 o'clock, I shut it down, right? 7 o'clock is my personal time as well. I don't do any business, you know, after 7, because that's my personal time.
Right.
That's the time for me and my husband to spend quality time together.
Right.
Whether we watch a movie, we talk, you know, he smokes cigars, we go and we sit, and he smokes, and we find time together. I don't have any young kids, but if I had young kids, they'll be in bed.
They'll be
and
in
that's
bed.
basically
Yeah, you have to have
how you
their
do.
times,
Right.
Schedule.
And just circling back before we go to the next question is circle back to the fact that you've got to appreciate him for what he does.
Right.
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 You know,
Value.
and you know, maybe she's not feeling that he's appreciating her for what she does, because a lot of men, you know,
Take it for
don't,
granted.
Right, take it for granted. They don't appreciate that it's work.
Right.
It's hard work.
It's hard work.
looking after
Even though
kids.
you're home
Right.
for all those
Right.
hours.
Right. It's
It's
hard
still
work.
hard work.
You know,
Yeah.
I see mothers right now, and I'm talking to them on the phone, and the kid is there wanting attention because they want attention all the time.
All the time.
Yes. So it's work. All right. Great answer, Michelle. Thank you very much. So let's go to our next question. Our next question comes from Hollis, you know, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Hollis writes, I've been married for 10 years. My husband and I have a good marriage, not great, but because he does not like to talk. You know, the slightest disagreement sends him into his man cave, and I can't reach him or get him to talk. So, Hollis writes, help me make over my marriage and improve my communication with my husband. Like I said, the advice that I'm giving is advice I can pull from my personal experience. And right now, I am married to a man that does not like to talk. And I like to talk, 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 talk. So normally what I would do, I would lead the conversation. And he would sit there and listen. I'll say, you know, a conversation is I talk, you talk. You know what I mean? It's a dialogue. And he says, well, I'm listening to you, right? And I'm talking and talking and talking. But whenever I try to steer the conversation into what I want to talk about, he would say, I don't feel like talking about that. Sometimes you don't need to talk. You know what I mean? So I was just listening to this book recently by Dr. Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And I understand a little bit more about people that don't like to talk. Now, the book that is called What Happened to You. And basically, Dr. Perry was sharing the fact that kids, when they have trauma, they have to talk in their own time. Let's say something really bad happened to them, and they go to a therapist, and the therapist is trying to get them to talk about how it's affecting them or whatever happened to them, and they don't want to talk. And basically, what they do in this therapy is just sit. They just sit. They just, you know, play or color or crayon or something, and they wait until that kid is ready to share. So I used that information, and now when I sit with my husband, I have to just let there be space. And whenever he's ready to talk, then he will talk. And it's very uncomfortable for me because I like to talk. But you just have to learn to sit in the presence. And when he doesn't feel that he's pressured to talk, then actually that he will talk. But yes, talking is very important to a marriage because you have to communicate. And it is a man thing. They all shut down and go into not talking. In fact, they say that the worst thing you can say to a man is, we need to talk.
It's been said.
Right away, that armor comes down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
been
So
said.
they say never to say that. Now, Michelle, what was your experience with your husband in this talking thing?
Okay. Well, we had, first of all, different temperaments, personalities.
Right.
So my husband was more of a phlegmatic, laid back, easygoing type of guy.
Yes,
How I've learned, because it's been said that a woman speaks 1,000 more words than a man.
Than the man, right?
So I would just find something that interests him.
Right.
Because most men don't analyze things the way we do.
Right.
And they're not emotional as we are. So of course we like to talk about everything.
Yeah.
And they don't always understand, you know, when we want to just talk. So what I did, I found things that he was interested in, and I would start talking about things that he liked to talk about, which was finances, and because he was a financial analyst. So we would talk about business and the kingdom, and we would, even sports. I learned a little bit about football, which I didn't know he really liked sports, because when I first married him, he never watched sports, because I didn't have a TV in my house.
Okay.
So, because I felt it took up too much time. So, but I got him to open up by just talking about things that interest him. Yeah, pretty much.
Right. So let's say that you wanted to talk to him about quality time, for instance, right? Or something that's going on in a relationship that you wanted to talk about. So did you start the conversation talking to him about something he likes to talk about, and then kind of steer the conversation into quality time, for instance?
Quality time. Well, no, he never really initiate the conversation. it would be me. But for quality time, our quality time was just sitting and watching TV together.
Okay.
Even though I would fall asleep every time. But,
right.
Like I said, or to talk about our kids.
Right.
And their well-being. But as far as quality time, we just pretty much did it when we would go out for date night, because we did have date night. Every Friday we had date night.
Good for you.
Yeah, we had to have date night.
Good for you.
So
yeah, I mean, I used to have date nights every 2 weeks.
Okay.
On a Friday too.
Friday.
Everybody at least likes Friday. So yeah, so that's what I wasn't using quality time. I was using that for an instance. For instance, if I want to talk to my husband, I want to share what's going on in my life. I want to tell him about, maybe what happened to my kids or something along the lines of that.
Yeah,
so I do the talk. But once in a while, I will want to talk about where our marriage is going or where we see ourselves in 10, 15 years or something. I'm a coach, right?
Right.
And I want to steer the conversation in that direction. And whenever I try to do that, he would say, "You're not my coach."
You have to have a plan.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
You have to have a plan.
So, but yeah, so that's basically, I'm still working on that part. But I know that in order to get him out of the shell of not wanting to talk, or he says, "I'm not a talker," you know what I mean? So getting back to Hollis, what advice would you give to her to meet her husband at his characteristics of
when he would go into that
when
shell,
he goes into a man cave or whatever, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, men have to process things.
Right.
So I would give him time, like if you had a conflict or something. So,
right.
They have to process, and they process differently. We wanted to answer right then and there.
Right.
They might take a day or two.
Right.
To get back to you about what you said, because they have to think about it. They thinkers.
Okay.
So
your suggestion is to leave him there
just leave
until
him.
he's ready to come out.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Myrna, don't withhold love and affection.
Right.
Right. Still do something nice.
Right.
And just wait and pray.
Right. Yes.
That's the
yes.
main thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually good advice.
Yeah.
One of the things I would tell her is to. We're talking a physical cave and we're talking a mental cave. I have a friend that actually do have a room that he goes into, and that's his cave, right? You know what I mean? He has the music going, he has dark lights or whatever, and that's his cave.
And just in front of the television.
Right.
Men spend a lot of time in front of the
my
television.
husband's cave could be watching football because, listen, when football season is on, he can watch that thing all day, every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? So maybe that's his cave. That's what he wants to do.
Right.
But, I would say to step into that cave momentarily, give him a kiss, give him a hug, ask him if there's something he wants, and then get out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let him know that that's his personal space.
Yes.
That's his personal time. You know what I mean? Don't invade it. Because a lot of women, we want, like you're right, we want things now. We don't want to wait. We want it now.
Right.
We don't want
to
to
answer
process.
now. Exactly.
Right. So we let him in the man cave. And sooner or later, when he realizes that there is no resistance to him taking this time to go into his cave, then he will go in less frequently. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yes, I did learn football myself, just so that you can talk intelligently about it. And I actually tried that. I say, my husband likes to talk to his friends about football. Maybe I'll start talking about football. It's not the same
It's
thing.
not the same.
He didn't want to talk to me about football.
And most of the time, we want to talk about stuff that interests us.
He wants to talk to his male friends about that. That's something, So, all right. So as we wrap up today, we had a couple of questions. One, and, they're both, even though they might look different, they're both on the communication. Because Debbie didn't really communicate with her husband that she needed help around the house, that she needed him to pay her some attention, right? She just had animosity that he wasn't helping and he wasn't paying her any attention, and she never communicated that. Hollis wanted some information on communicating with her husband once he's in the man cave. What you do to either get him out of the man cave or prevent him from being in the man cave. So communication is very important. They say that it is the top reason that people get divorced. So I started off the segment talking about what we can do as women to change and not be asking God or telling our friends about our husbands and what we need them to do to change. So what we can do as women is that we start the communication. You know, even if they don't want to talk, they have ears to listen. So we do the communication. Another thing my pastor always talks about is, and this Pastor Glover, is deal with someone according to knowledge. So if you know that your husband doesn't like to talk, or if you know that your husband is not going to be the one that's going to vacuum the house and, you know, put the kids to bed unless you ask him, then you ask him. You would say, hey, babe, you know, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed today. It was a really hard day. You know, can I have some me time? Can you put the kids to bed for me? And they will say yes. Do you know what I mean? Instead of us being, oh, he never does anything. I do everything around here. And that you do, you withhold affection. You are resentful, and the energy in the house changes because you can feel tension, right? So you find peace and you give love, and once you give love, you will get back love. If that's your intention, it always sets your body response to intention, your husband responds to intention, because we're all communicating in the spirit world. Love is a spirit. It can be felt, right? Anger is also a spirit. It can be felt. So thank you for tuning in to the premiere episode of Help Me Make Over Your Marriage. I hope you got something from this episode. Stay tuned for other episodes. Until next time, blessings.
Amen.